Hey, Charles here with Rocky Mountain, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install a Tusk rear shock spring on your Gen 1 or Gen 2 KLR650. So that's 2018 and older, and if you don't already know, the stock springs on these bikes, they're really soft. So if you're doing any adventure riding and bringing luggage with you, or you just want a more comfortable ride, you want to get that spring upgraded. Now, with that being said, when you go to order one of these springs, you're going to want to use our drop-down menus on our website. So that way you make sure you're getting the correct spring for your bike, and then you're going to have an option for weight ratings. So the spring we're going with today, this one's rated at 255 pounds to 300 pounds. That number will include the rider's weight, your accessories, and your luggage. So very important information with that. Now, we do have options that do 400 pounds plus, so whatever you're doing, we've got you covered. As far as installation goes, it's pretty simple to do. And hey, if you're replacing the spring and you have a leaky seal or just want to get fresh fluid in there, we do have videos that cover those processes as well. So go check those out, but for now, let's go ahead and get this shock spring changed out. To get this done, we're using some common hand tools, including a 17mm combo wrench, 12, 17, and 22mm sockets. You also need a way to compress your spring. So these are the Tusk spring compressors. They come as a pair. And then you need a way to securely hold your bike up while the shock is off. So we're gonna be using the scissor jack from Drag Specialties. Other than that, we've got a vise with some soft jaws. Now, if you need spring compressors, a scissor jack, soft jaws, or anything else, you can find that stuff on our website by clicking the link in the description below. All right, so the first thing you need to do is make sure you have your KLR securely supported in the middle of the bike since we're pulling that rear shock off. So I'm using this pancake jack. It's rated at over 1,000 pounds and it's really easy to use, but you can just use a center stand, something like that. And then I'm just raising this far enough to take the pressure off of the rear wheel. And then from here, we are ready to loosen up some bolts and remove them. So the top shock mount, we need to gain access to that. You can see we have some evap stuff here and a couple of hoses in the way. So we'll go ahead and move those. All right, now we're gonna use our 17mm socket and remove this upper shock mounting bolt. And as you pull it out, if you feel like you have a ton of tension on it, just lift or lower that rear wheel to remove that tension. Next, we're going to remove this linkage bolt and we're going to remove this shock bolt. I'm going to be using a 22mm socket and a 17mm combo wrench. And then these bolts are really tight, so it's a good idea to have a friend hold one side while you loosen the other. And then as you remove the bolts, you can move the swing arm up and down to relieve pressure from them. Pull them all the way out. And keep a hand on that shock when you do that. And go ahead and remove it from the bottom. Now with the shock out, I want to make sure I clean this up before I start taking anything apart. So I'm just going to do a quick wipe down on it. All right, now that we have everything cleaned up, I've got this vise with soft jaws and I'm going to clamp this upper eyelet in it. Now with this, if you don't have soft jaws, you can use a couple of blocks of wood or some rags in your soft jaws. You just don't want to damage your shock body. Now, from here, we need to compress this spring. So I am going to use spring compressors, but I'm going to try to help myself out by using this adjuster on the shock. I'm going to try to extend this closer to the 5 position. So we're at that 5 mark right there. All right, next we're gonna use our spring compressors. So we're using 2 of them and you want to extend these pretty much as far as they can go because to get this thing to compress, it's got some preload on it and we're gonna be spanning 5 coils to get this done here. So I'm gonna loosely install one on this side, same thing on the other. And then to hold the spring compressors, I'm just using an adjustable wrench. We'll tighten them up evenly. That's going to free up this collar. We'll go ahead and pull that out and pull the spring assembly off. Now before we install our new spring, I'm just going to clean up these parts. Next, I'm going to slide the spring down into place. And we've got this collar. I'm going to slide that down as well. And then from here, we just need to use our spring compressors and compress the spring far enough until we can reinstall that spring retainer. Now, if you want to save yourself a little bit of time while installing the spring, you can back off that preload adjuster and put it in the number 1 position. All right, with the spring installed, we've got that retainer fully seated against that clevis at the bottom. We need to talk about this preload. So again, if you're backed off to the number 1 position, that's going to make installation just a little bit easier. At a very minimum, I recommend having the preload somewhere in the middle, but we are going to back this off to the number 1 spot. We're going to put this back onto the bike. We're going to see how it feels and check the sag, and we'll go from there. Now to install the shock back into the bike, I'm going to apply just a little bit of grease to this bolt and a little bit of thread locker as well. You don't have to use the thread locker. And then as you install the shock into the bike, make sure the adjuster is facing the left side if you're sitting on the bike. Then we're going to slide this up through the bottom, line up the eyelet with the tabs at the top, install the bolt, and we are going to torque that to 44 foot-pounds. Now be aware that the upper and lower torque specs for the Gen 1 models are slightly different. And then we have our vent tube and emission lines we're going to reinstall. You may or may not have all of these depending on what bike you have. Now for the linkage, we're going to apply just a little bit of grease to these bolts again, and then we also have some thread locker we're putting on. Then we're going to line up the shock with the linkage. We'll install the small bolt first, and then swing these pull rods up, and then put the bigger bolt in. We'll put the nuts on the back side, and we're going to torque those to 72 foot-pounds. Now we need to remove our bike from the stand, and from here we can make adjustments to our preload. So again, you have 5 different settings, so you can go about this a couple of different ways. You can go ride the bike and see which setting feels best to you, or like us, we're going to be measuring our sag. We're shooting for about 70 millimeters of sag, and that number is with our rider geared up and luggage installed on the bike. If you don't know how to set your sag, we do have a separate how-to video, so go check it out. It's geared more towards motocross, but those principles are going to apply to this as well. So that's it for installing the Tusk rear shock spring for your KLR650. If you need one of these, they're available on our website. Just click the link in the description below. Orders over $75 ship free. And if you have any questions, leave those down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I'm Charles with Rocky Mountain ATV MC. Thanks for watching.